Yeah, so thank you again for joining us. Many of you from the Dean's Cabinet panel a moment ago. If you're just joining us, good afternoon and welcome. My name is Matt Sala. I'm the Assistant Dean for Admissions here at the Villanova University Charles Woodger School of Law. Many of you just heard from our Associate Dean for Faculty Research and Development, as well as our Associate Dean for Academics, who are tasked with carrying out our Dean's vision for the law school. But now you're going to hear directly from the source, live and direct from the Sweet 16 that's about to occur later this afternoon. One of your biggest supporters here outside of me, Dean Ravenel, Dean Centeno, is going to be none other than Dean Alexander, the Arthur J. Kenya Dean here at Villanova Law. The Dean began his journey back in 2016 at Villanova, joining us from Seton Hall's Law School, where he served as the Associate Dean for Academics and the Professor of Law. His areas of expertise include constitutional law, criminal procedure, election law, criminal law, and the First Amendment. His research interests focus on the constitutional dimensions of election law and campaign reform, and he has authored several books on the First Amendment and constitutional law, including his most recent book titled Beyond Imagination, the January 6th Insurrection, that he co-authored with 13 other law school deans that include chapters on leadership, the electoral process, racism, and the role of law schools in educating attorneys committed to upholding the rule of law. His career and scholarship are far too expensive for me to delve into without eating up most of the time here. So I recommend reviewing his bio on our website. But before jumping into everything, into the AMA, I'm going to hand it over to Dean Alexander to further introduce himself and share some brief remarks.
Thank you, Matt, and welcome everybody. Yes, I am in San Antonio right now. Game time tonight, 7:29 Eastern, in case you're looking for something to do this evening. That's a very kind, thorough introduction of me. I am really just pleased to be able to talk to you today. Briefly, I just want to say welcome. It is an honor. I'm just so proud to be the dean. It's been wonderful, 6 years into it. It's a school where I feel like you've obviously applied and you've learned a lot about our school. And I feel like we are just a place where you're going to not only learn the fundamentals, contracts, con law, torts, but we're going to really put values at the core of a legal education so that you're going to really think about how do you serve as a lawyer? What are the best things to do? We're going to talk to you about where law meets business. And think about whether you're doing like a nonprofit that's trying to get funding for going forward, or working for an attorney for a Fortune 500 company. Whatever it happens to be, the where law meets business focus helps you see what's the best ways to serve as a lawyer, how you can be most effective, and understand even if you are on your own, how to do something about that. So I think we find a way in which we're, in both those contexts, we're teaching you the fundamentals, the rules, the law, but we're also expanding where you are, expanding you to think about how do you serve, expanding you to think about where law meets business, and frankly, talking about your own professional development and leadership. So I think in the end, we really have, our graduates, I really do think stand out. And I think that is one of the reasons why we have seen such great success in our jobs, for example, people know that when they're hiring a Villanova lawyer, they're getting something really special. And all of that is done in a community that I love. I think this is it's a phenomenal community. I stress every day that we need to treat each other with kindness, love, respect. It's part of who we are when we talk about our motto as a university: Veritas Unitas Caritas, truth, unity, and love. We are bound together in a pursuit of truth, knowledge. We do it in a community, and we do it with love and respect for each other. Treat each other as brothers and sisters, and it really matters. Law school is hard. It's very hard, 3 years, but it can be done in a way that I think is really actually fun. And so hopefully we create that environment for you. So I think that's enough, because I'd like to hear people ask me anything.
Awesome. Well, what we plan to do here in this session is really give you, the admitted students, the opportunity to hear from the dean and ask him any questions that you want. You don't often get this opportunity, not necessarily at Villanova, but in general, to speak with the person who's leading the charge at the school. And you often get to hear from me. Some may say a little bit too much, even the dean, but this is a wonderful chance to hear from the person, at the helm of the law school. And Dean Alexander is responsible for all facets of the law school, including long-term strategic and academic planning, curricular initiatives, faculty research and teaching support, student services, and fundraising and alumni relations. So more than just what is happening now, we want you as students to see where we are going. So with that being said, we're going to shift into the AMA with the dean. And I gave everyone the opportunity to pose questions in advance to that form. But for those who think of questions as we move along, just type them into the Q&A. And I guarantee you, as long as it is appropriate, I will ask them. And we off of the bat, we have one to start. And for here, did Villanova decide on COVID requirements for the upcoming school year, masking, vaccination requirements, et cetera? Is the university accepting exemptions at this time?
So the current policy is that masks are not required indoors. I'd use that. That's sort of the short answer. We don't require masks, and I don't anticipate any change in that. But I would just go back to the longer answer. I'm really proud of what we did in COVID. I'll never forget March 13th when we had our last day of classes, March 13th, 2020. And then I honestly spent every waking moment for 5 months to make sure we could open in person in August, and we did. And I, went around measuring the spaces 6 feet between all the desks, all the counters, every chair. I was ready for us to open as early as necessary, 6 a.m. till 10 p.m. if we needed to. I figured out a way to do 2-day shifts, literally splitting a morning and an afternoon and an evening shift, weekends. And I told the president and the provost that, that we needed to be open, and we could make it work. And the university itself, I think, had a very strong plan, and the law school and the entire university was open in person from starting in August of 2020, with an extraordinary record, frankly, where there were no transmissions in the classroom. That was amazing. And we did it all because I think that the staff and the faculty were ready for anything we asked, and the students were eager to be here in person. So I think we've come out very strong. We're exploring how we can be even stronger based on lessons we've learned. But yeah, when we came back this year, also we had a vaccine requirement and a mask requirement, but now now a booster requirement, but the mask requirement is lifted.
Yeah, so now, cross our fingers, knock on wood, that the pandemic is mostly behind us and we get to return to some sense of normalcy. There's a question about what is the biggest challenge that Villanova Law faces today, other than me getting in your way. How does the school plan to address this challenge? It's a great question.
Yeah, the biggest challenges we face, certainly, I think, the pandemic changed everything for everybody. It knocked everybody back. And I think that the challenge is to make sure that we remember why we were such a great law school before we went into the pandemic, because we did great in the pandemic, but we want to make sure we return to all the things we were doing and build back even stronger. So I think the big challenge really is learning the lessons from the pandemic. How can we work effectively? How can we teach? Sometimes we might want to teach remote classes. It gives us the opportunity, and now all faculty are skilled in using Zoom. So if you've got an expert who happens to be in California, maybe you can Zoom that person in. Things like that's a small example, but we want to think about how we can maintain our commitment to academic excellence and our commitment to community in the post-COVID world we're entering. And I think that's the biggest challenge, and we're working on it every day, frankly.
Yeah, so we have we'll start off with this question. You've been here for almost 6 years now. You began your tenure at Villanova back in 2016. So what initially, this is a question I asked our interviewers sometime, what initially led you to Villanova? And, what is causing you to stay here for so long? You just renewed after 5 years. So what is causing you to stay?
So, I guess it was 7 years ago, I was thinking about whether I'd want to be a law school dean. I was the academic dean at Seton Hall, as you mentioned. And, I thought about what would be special about a law school, which would be attracting me. And I had a sense that this was a school that really did care beyond just the academic learning, that created a community that cared about how we conducted ourselves, the things I was talking about before. And I saw in Villanova from a distance that it was a place that was really offering a different kind of perspective on legal education, one that is really rooted in our tradition as a Catholic school, but not because we're training Catholic lawyers per se. At first, I don't think you can agree what a Catholic lawyer is. Two Catholics could worship together, and then they go out and do what they think is in pursuit of their own faith and legal tradition, and they'll go different directions. So whatever your faith, whatever you may be a Catholic, you may be a Buddhist, a Jew, you may be an atheist, who knows? But you have values, and we ask you to tap into those values. And I saw Villanova as a place that would do that, combining that commitment to academic excellence and commitment to values. And I have discovered that frankly, it was that place that I thought it was, but frankly, I think we're much, stronger now than ever before. I think we're stronger as a community than we've ever been. I think certainly our academic work has been lifting. All metrics have been going up. Our bar passage rates have been going up. Our job rates are going up. Our, all of you who are on this call, you've got great LSATs and GPAs. I know that because frankly, we are so much harder to get into. Thanks to Matt and his team, we're sitting here we're the 25th most selective school in the country to get into, because people know that we are a wonderful place that is going only going in positive direction.
Yeah, I'm going to touch upon something that you just mentioned, but from a different perspective for this question that we got. And we talk about, trying to build a diverse community from people from different faiths and backgrounds. This person asked a question about the diversity of political opinion and promoting civil discourse, which your book just putting out is a great example of this. But can you speak to what the different political opinions and what Villanova is doing to help promote diversity with thought within the student body and faculty?
That is, whoever asked that question, just come find me when you start, because that is so important to me. I will tell you, I am personally very concerned for how things are going in our country and the division. And I am every day trying to preach a message of how we can work together, how we can sometimes disagree. And we have to understand that we have different perspectives, and we will build bridges to talk across difference. I say that every day. I've actually started a Building Bridges initiative, which will be, support giving speakers and doing things like having let's say, a Democrat and a Republican to talk about pressing issues. I'll give an example from earlier this week that I was just so happy. In the morning, I had the good fortune to introduce Congresswoman Mary Gay Scanlon, a Democrat who represents our area. And then in the afternoon, I had the good fortune to introduce the newest Pennsylvania Supreme Court Justice, Kevin Brobson, a Republican who was just elected. So they are from different political parties. They're both distinguished lawyers who came to speak to our students about what they do in service, in public service. They've got fancy titles and all that kind of stuff. And it was fun because I told each group the same thing, that I am proud that we today were welcoming both. And that I encouraged everybody to think about what that means for who we are, that we would have people who are prominent and because in Pennsylvania, those who don't know, Pennsylvania, we elect our Supreme Court justices, so that we have just elected, this new Republican Supreme Court justice, and not long ago elected a Democrat to this seat, that we can engage with that, and we must, and we should. And I'm really proud of that. That's to me a great day. I am all in for helping us make sure we respect people of all political perspectives. It's not just left, right, Democrat, Republican, conservative, liberal. There's just a range of positions on any given issue. And I really want us to encourage that discussion and debate.
Yeah, what I loved is just the week before, we had the Villanova Law Women Trailblazers event, and then you had former Republican senator and graduate of Villanova Law, Kelly Ayotte, and then you also had the current leader of the Democratic Party for the House of Representatives for Pennsylvania, Joanna McClinton, on the same stage together. Very civil, very great conversation.
Yes.
So It happens in all forms, events, and discourse here on campus. And we have, I've never seen this many questions come in such a rapid clip. So we have another question from one of our incoming students who says Villanova is often described as a law school on the rise, which is evident in our increased rankings. Where do you want to see Villanova Law in the next 5 years in respect to the law school community as a whole?
Yeah, in the next 5 years, I want it to be that I think people understand that we are not just the school on the rise, but that we actually are that school that is considered among the top national schools. I'm not saying, not yet at least, that we're like a T14 school, but I think that people now see us and understand us to be a really great national school, and that's, I think, very important. And as the rankings as one example, the reason we've gone up in the rankings, because frankly, we've done everything right. It's not because of one thing. It's not that I told Dean Sala here to just, admit only certain students and like that sort of skewed the ranking, or that, I have, just done one thing, only bar prep, and that's gotten so high. It's like, but it's all the things. It's our faculty are more productive now than ever. Right, our admissions is stronger than ever. Our bar passage is higher. Our job rates are better. So what I think is important in answering that question is to know that what I see is the rankings certainly, we all know they matter, but they just reflect to me that we are doing things right. And what I hope in the future is that we continue to strengthen what we're doing. So when we talk about our jobs numbers that are off the chart. I want to be that our students are applying for any and every possible job. I just was reviewing some recent data, which is not yet even public, but we're just looking at where our students are going, and it's better than ever. It's not public data yet; it'll be out soon. But also, what made me happy about that is like we had somebody working in high-level public interest jobs. We had people working at big 500+ person law firms, prosecutors, defense attorneys. We have our students going to do the jobs they most want to do. And those outcomes to me are huge. And when people know us as an outstanding school, those results will follow.
Yeah, what I love that you mentioned is outcomes. And so often when people think about rankings, they don't realize that outcomes way less than admission statistics in the US News rankings. So when I ask people, I'm like, rankings, if they're important to you, fine. Like everyone has their own factors when determining where to go to school, but understand that, almost 25% of the ranking is admission statistics and 20% is bar passage and employment outcomes. And 40% is what people like you and other attorneys think of a school on a 1 to 5 scale. So like everyone has their own factors in terms of what they want to go to law school for. As Dean Alexander mentioned, there's some great employment outcomes that are going to be coming out pretty soon. But even prior to the pandemic, the year before, Villanova was top 8 for Galt's standard job placement when it came to bar passage required jobs, JD Advantage jobs. So I always say from a perspective of outcomes, Villanova is incredibly strong. And I will say, as someone who is in several meetings with Dean Alexander, who lets me know what kind of class he wants to bring in. It's not just hey, let's increase our LSAT, hey, let's increase our GPA, but he cares a lot about the character of the students that we bring in, because he's someone that always emphasizes the caritas part of Veritas Unitas Caritas. So for us, it's making sure that we're building a diverse class of political opinion, but also in terms of interests, because the more interests that our entering students have, the more the different types of roles and jobs that they occupy coming out of school, the more that sets us up for long-term success in terms of who can serve as mentors for Villanova and who can take future Villanova students as interns and as graduates when they come out. So there's a lot more that goes into it than just LSAT and GPA. And often you see a lot of schools emphasizing that because it allows for a short-term uptick in terms of their rankings, but we have more of a long-term strategic goal in terms of where we're trying to bring this school, led by Dean Alexander. We have a class or a question here from Tina about how Villanova is incorporating teachings of diversity and inclusion into the law school curriculum, which I think is a great part given your racial justice action plan.
Yeah, so good question there. So there's a couple things. Matt mentioned the Racial Justice Action Plan, which is up on the website. You can check that out because we have had and always have had a commitment to diversity in the law school and in the university, and it's come out in different kinds of ways. One thing which I really love is that. When I first started 6 years ago, almost 6 years ago, I got together a group that was students, faculty, and staff to talk about how we are doing as a community in regard to questions of diversity and equity and inclusion, and we've been constantly thinking about those questions. So, for example, we have a course that is new, that is team taught. Several of us, and it's new. Sorry, it's new to my deanship. It started 5 years ago, where we have typically 2, 3, I guess, professors who will talk about their particular field, and they'll ask about questions how race relates to their field. So I actually usually do at least one or two class sessions in that. So I might do a con law lecture, which there's just sort of some obvious stuff there about the Equal Protection Clause and things like Brown v. Board of Education, which I'm sure you all have heard about. But also I do a class on election law. So I'll talk about voting rights. And so it's a way in which we can sort of just have a different perspective on various topics that we study. And so that's part of the curriculum. We also have interesting courses in intergroup dialogue, which gets us to think about how do we speak across different, sort of going to that previous point. And so I think that what's happening is we've incorporated specific programming as well. But also what we're doing, I think, is it's just sort of becomes part of the daily conversation. So it's not like we're going to say, here, go check this box. It's like, this is who we are. We are diverse, and we're diverse in a million different ways. And yet we are brought together as a community. So I'm trying to make sure that we as a community celebrate that diversity and celebrate, again, this is back to that previous question also, celebrate our ideological diversity, celebrate ourselves as a community. And that's it sort of permeates everything. And like I said, the Racial Justice Action Plan that's up on the web, on our website. So that's another way to check it out. But I just feel like it's a lot we've been doing, and I think making great progress with that.
And I've linked it in the chat box if anyone wants to go to the Racial Justice Action Plan that's on the website that Dean Alexander mentioned. So from diversity of thought to diversity of millions of dollars that have been coming and flowing into the law school under your deanship, there have been some historic levels of donations and really alumni engagement over the past 6 years since your tenure here. And from John Scarpa's transformational $15 million gift in 2020 to Chuck's or Mr. Widger's newest $13 million donation this past year. There appears to be this, I don't want to say renewed energy, but this excitement that has been brewing over the past half decade. And I was wondering if you can speak to some of the kind of exciting developments that have occurred and what that gift means for us as a law school and to these folks here today that are going to be potential future students.
Sure. No, we are, things are going very well on the development front. And what's important about that is for the students to know money it's essential because it helps us do the things we need to do to be that first-rate law school. Money in and of itself, we can talk about what that's worth, but from my perspective, why I'm so happy with these gifts that you mentioned is that it's folks who see where we are going and say they want to invest in our future success. So the most recent gift from Chuck Widger, his original gift of $25 million to name the school 6.5 years ago. But this is a more recent gift of $13 million. One of the biggest things about it is it endows a new position for career strategy. It's an associate dean of professional development and leadership. And that's about you, the students. That's how we develop you into the strongest possible professionals and develop you as the leaders of tomorrow. It also funds 2 new positions within our overall career strategy, one being a public interest and one being a professional development director. That's basically putting resources into the daily work of making sure that you have the best opportunity to develop as leaders, as professionals, and frankly, get the jobs. This is something where I'm very proud of it because it's something which Chuck Widger and I have talked about a lot. And he's so committed to the school. It's not that he independently has an interest in career strategy, but he has talked to me and we work together every day. Actually, I was literally just texting with him earlier this morning. We talk all the time. And he's basically that gift. He said, well, what do you need? And I told him. And so that's resulted in a gift that is just, it's really unprecedented to have that kind of a gift to endow position for supporting the students as they get their jobs. It's terrific. Another major part of his gift is to support faculty and their research and scholarship. That's something where we are constantly pushing to support the faculty. We've got some new faculty who are great scholars, and frankly, supporting some of the longer serving faculty as they do their scholarship. John Scarpa's gift, $15 million, and that expands the work we do with law and entrepreneurship. It's really exciting work. And what's exciting about that also is it's endowing a new professor position. So Mary Sheila McDonald, who I was just talking to, that's just before coming on here, she is our new Scarpa professor in law and entrepreneurship. And so she is working on, the reason we were just talking is very exciting. She's working with several major companies to make sure that our students might have an experiential learning opportunity to work with the counsel's office in those businesses. So one of the major components is going to be experiential learning, so that you would have the chance to go work with a company and to see how the entrepreneurs who started that company, why they started, and see where they're trying to take it. So, I guess I could go on for, I could certainly go on for the full hour, but I'm trying to illustrate the point that those gifts, I think, do reflect that people have a great sense of confidence in where we're going, because these are folks who would not invest in the school if they didn't have confidence in the future of the school. And what it does, it means then we can support you and give you the best possible legal education for it.
Yeah. So one thing that you mentioned in your opening remarks is this philosophy and Chuck's philosophy of where law meets business. And, I interview candidates a lot, as you know, and I sometimes hear from them. I see some of them here. I see like Ambria Smith. I see Ben Levy, all of these folks on here that, have passions for things outside of like corporate work. So I hear from those who are focused on public interest, on policy, on government work about how this where law meets business philosophy applies to them. And as someone who served as a policy director for then Senator Obama's presidential campaign and worked in several policy, government, and public interest related positions throughout your career, how would you say this where law meets business philosophy would apply to someone who maybe aspires to one day be in a similar position or positions that you've been in during your career?
Sure. I think we're in a situation where when we talk about where law meets business, first and foremost, people think, oh, this is corporate law. It is, but that's the tip of the iceberg. What we're trying to do is make sure several things. First, if you are going to represent businesses as your clients, this will help you understand the business better. So it will make you a better lawyer if you are serving a client who is a business. Now, that could be, of course, transactional work, or it could be litigation on behalf of a client. It could be all kinds of stuff. So that's not even limited. But if you're working for businesses, that's important. A second thing, I think it's important to understand other fields where that training will help you. So, for example, you may want to be a family lawyer. You say, what does where law meets business have to do with that? Well, if you're working a run-of-the-mill divorce case, you've got a couple that's divorcing, there's an asset they share, we will teach you how to understand the valuation of that asset and how to work with a CPA, for example, who would be able to say, oh, that's actually valued this way, not that way, and then get a better result for your client. If you don't understand how something is being valued, and again, those are things we explicitly teach you in our modules that we have in the January, beginning of January. Those things help you in an area like family law, or an area like if you want to go work for a nonprofit. Nonprofits depend on grants, and they depend on somebody saying, I want to bet on you. Now, that may be an individual or foundation or other institution, but what they do is they say, if you're running this nonprofit, I need to see what do your books look like? If you don't understand where law meets business, you don't understand how to prepare a stronger presentation in that regard, you won't get the funding you need. So for nonprofits, that's to say that there's a corporate part I mentioned, then there's other practice areas as a second major point. Third major point is considering how it works for things like nonprofits. And a fourth major point I would make is that it teaches you your value in business. You are entering a profession and you will have a value. You are investing in yourself to come to Villanova Law. It is an investment in yourself and your long-term future. It is an investment that pays off very well over the course of your career financially. When we talk about where law meets business, we want you to understand your value. So what do you bring to a law firm, let's say? The reality is if you go to a big law firm, they're losing money on you your first couple of years. You may not know that yet, but they don't make money on you in the couple of years. They lose money. But so what is your value? This will help you understand what's your value. And then what's your value in terms of going forward to then make partner? How do you get to that point? Or let's say you want to go the complete opposite route. You want to start your own practice. There's a reality there. If you want to do things like pay rent and eat food, you need income, right? But you also have to pay rent on your office. You have to have insurance, malpractice insurance. You have to pay an assistant. You have to pay filing fees. There's all these things. We will teach you how to understand what it costs for you to be in the business of law. So let's say it's a range of things which we teach. And I want folks to understand that every day. It certainly involves corporate law, but it's so much bigger than that.
And we're gonna have questions that keep us up to the end. So there's another question about what is one initiative or program, opportunity, etc., that you've worked on since joining Villanova Law that you're especially excited about or proud of?
One. I mean, there's just so many. I don't know. You tell me what's the best one. I feel like we've been doing a lot of things. Gosh, I don't know. I'm sort of thinking about the things we've talked about. Trying to come up with the one that would stand out above and beyond all the rest. I guess I'll just talk about something which we do, which I'm proud of, which I haven't mentioned yet, and that's our pop-up conversations. And it's something where, when you go to law school, you realize how much what you study in school relates to what happens in the world and how much lawyers have to do with where things are going. And so we do these pop-ups on occasion to address pressing current events so that you can be informed as to what is happening in the moment. And so typically it's like a professor will get up and say something and students will have a discussion. And it's community building. It's certainly information, but it's about building community and getting us all together, going back to the previous conversations, to talk about issues and to understand that we have a range of opinions. And first and foremost, we want to learn. And we want to learn some of the legal angles and things, and then have a discussion about where things might happen to go. So, those are things which I think are really interesting, and something which we've really done during my deanship, which I think are just a fun thing to do. And it comes up, a couple times a year, a couple times a semester, maybe even. We even did pop-ups while we were remote on Zoom. So that's, I guess, just another thing which I guess we haven't talked about that I would mention amongst the many, many things we've already talked about.
Yeah, and we have another question here from Zach, who is getting set to graduate from the U in a couple weeks. Yeah,
it's all about the U.
So good luck tonight against Iowa State. But yeah, Zach asks about how do you feel that the Morad Center has helped students seeking a career in sports related to law, and how have they helped them find like tangible opportunities in that field?
Great. And just the explanation about the U. I have a daughter who graduated from the U. So for everybody on this session who was thinking, why is he doing that? Yes, my daughter graduated from the U. So go Canes. The Morad Sports Law Center, it's one of those things where what's really fun about that is, well, frankly, it's just fun, talk about sports and law, and it's constantly everyday news. That's a reality. We have, you pick the time of year, and I guarantee you there's something going on, whether it's one of the major sports or just an athlete individually. But there's a constant cycle of news and thinking about how the law intersects with that. It could be talking about things like salary caps, could be name, image, and likeness conversations. Our team goes off to sports law competitions and constantly dominates in that context because we are trained. It's like, yes, winning is fun, placing high is fun, but it's a constant source of our students understanding how they can contribute in the world of sports and law. I think it's just we are having our students engage in these really significant conversations. And what's really important about it too is that sports law is, we all see. Look, I'm at the basketball games in San Antonio. We all see things like March Madness, but you know what? It's so many things about sports are just about other legal aspects. I was talking to a guy who actually built the stadium where we're playing tonight. That's, when you talk about building a stadium, that's a question of municipal financing, construction, multi-billion-dollar deals. These are things which you have to do as a lawyer in all kinds of contexts. So sports law is in and of itself very interesting, but also it's an entry point into lots of other things you might happen to do. And that's, to me, very important for us to keep our eye on that prize, that we are training folks to be excellent lawyers, and this is the field where they want to be, and they're doing great. I was in New York 2 weeks ago and was talking to one of our alums who was also one of my students in my election law class, and now he's doing name, image, and likeness work. It's really great. This is first job out. These are things where our students are getting great opportunities, and I do think it's important to understand, yes, if that's what you want to do, sports law is great, but also it is about a bigger sense of how you can be a very strong lawyer.
Yeah, I'm sure you're talking about AT, right? Yeah.
I'm talking about AT.
Yeah. So there's one on this topic. It's an interesting kind of anecdote, but I get a call in the fall. There's this person that is just walked into the building. They're looking to tour with their daughter. They're a graduate of this school. I don't know who this person is. I go over the security and I'm like, I see this person with his young daughter, and I say, "How are you doing?" And he goes, "Oh, hi, I'm a graduate of Villanova Law, but I went to the old building across the way. This is my first time here. And my daughter is looking at schools in the area. She really wants to apply early action to this school down the road." And I'm like, "Oh, what's your name?" He's like, "Oh, Jim Colbury." I'm like, "Does that name sound familiar?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm an 87 graduate. I'm the vice president, general counsel for the Craft Group." I'm like, "Oh, I gotta do the tour now." So I was just gonna send them on their way. But we're chatting, we're talking about the Morad Center. He's like, "Yeah, I know Andrew Brandt. I really want to get involved." We see Dean Alexander with his Adidas track jacket on and about to get some lunch down in the dining hall. And I make a joke and mentioning, because this person is in charge of the general counsel for the Patriots, and I make a joke that Dean Alexander is a Washington fan, for which we all forgive him for. And they ended up chatting, and we're currently trying to get and we had 2 students on Friday and Thursday. I won't mention their names, but they just interviewed for the Craft Group for an internship this summer. So it's just funny sometimes seeing the success of our graduates and where they've ended up, and how one small thing can lead to internship opportunities opening up for our students. So it happens sometimes on a whim.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We have another question here. We have a couple more questions coming in about specifically what this person is not from Philadelphia. They are from a small rural town and a little bit nervous about moving to a big city. You come from DC. I come from the Bronx in New York City. With Philadelphia, that's probably a slightly higher crime rate than where they're from. Can you speak to what Villanova does to ensure the safety of its students?
Sure. So I certainly would encourage you to come visit if you've not been able to do that.
Yeah.
And I think it's a beautiful, beautiful campus, a beautiful environment. We are located about 12 miles outside of Philadelphia. So it's the kind of thing where there's a lot of great things happening in Philadelphia. It's an exciting place. You can go to, guy like me likes to go to places like the Constitution Center. That's just poor Matt Saleh has heard these things before, but it's true. It is exciting how it is so much the birthplace of our nation. And going to places like the Constitution Center are really fun. Great museums, restaurants. It is an exciting place. Where we are is not Philadelphia. So if you want to live in Philadelphia, the train stops, and also I encourage, by the way, all of you to visit. There's a train station that is right on campus, right next to the law school. The train runs straight into Center City, and it comes out to the suburbs, including ours. And it's literally like the parking lot for the train station. It's a commuter train. Is the parking shares with the parking lot for the law school. So that's to say, if you want to live in the city, you can commute out very easily. If you want to live in the immediate area around in the main line where we are, the suburbs, then you can live here, and it's frankly just it is a sort of idyllic, beautiful suburb, and you got all the beautiful trees and a classic campus setup where you got a lot of green space, a lot of open space. The area where we are, again, it's just like lots of shops and restaurants and things like that. Very vibrant social life. So it's an extraordinary place like that. In terms of particular question about security, I mean, it is a very safe campus, but also we do have our own force, our own security. It's the entire Office of Public Safety is always looking out for us. We actually have a guard stationed in the law school when you're greeted there. We are the one building. I don't know when this tradition started, but we have our own guard always positioned there. But on campus, there's just it's a constant force, a presence of the public safety, who I think are frankly just extraordinarily kind. They make a point to get to know you. I will tell you, they will come up to me and they'll say something that they might have seen about a student, not about like some bad behavior, but something they're like, oh, I just saw a student, he seemed real happy. We'll chat in the dining room. They'll come downstairs to the cafeteria. They'll have lunch with you. So I think it's a wonderful area to be in. And what I think is really special is that you can really find your way, whether you're more of a city person, more of a suburb person. As Matt mentioned, yes, I grew up in Washington, D.C. My parents were originally from New York City. And I've been very happy living in this area outside of the city. And I think you can really find your way in a lot of different contexts.
Yeah, well, I like to fantasize on Zillow because I'll never be able to afford a home in this region, but it is incredibly safe. The one thing to know is you have to actively want to come to the law school to be at the law school. Whereas if you're in a law school that's right in the heart of the city, you have hundreds, if not thousands of people walking right in front of the building. So that's a big reason why we got through all of last year fully in person without a contracted case of COVID at the law school. And then, yeah, I'm someone, I came from New York City to be with my wife and out in Philadelphia. And I took the train in every single day because I didn't want to leave the city. And many of our students do that. The one thing I'll say is I grew up in the Bronx, in the early 80s it was a different time. But coming out to Philadelphia, in the heart of Center City, when you go to a school there, my wife was at Penn Vet School, and they get subscribed to these Penn Alerts, and the same thing for Temple. And I've never had more anxiety. I think McCall is on this call. I've never had more anxiety because it's constantly being alerted to oh, there's this, or this, where ignorance is bliss. However, I've been here for 6.5 years. There's never been a single instance crime here at the law school. It is incredibly safe. I'm here, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on who you ask, really late. So I'll go for a run at 9 o'clock at night around the law school. And I've never once ever, feared at all. So take that with a grain of salt, but definitely come visit because you'll realize everything that Dean Alexander and I are talking about is genuinely true. In terms of, we have one other question here from a student about how can a student achieve a balance, because you're an overachiever, Dean Alexander. How can a student achieve a balance of excelling academically and getting involved with student organizations? Do you have any advice? We have all these opportunities at Villanova, from student organizations to being a research assistant to getting involved with journals and pro bono opportunities. So what advice would you give to a student on trying to do well in the classroom while managing all these different opportunities outside the classroom?
Yeah, that's a great question. Law school will present you with lots of opportunities, and it's important to engage in them. Not your first semester in particular. Head down, study. Okay, got that? Study, 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 study. That's it. Trust me, you need to work hard on your studies in your first semester. Once you sort of get through 1L, though, you do have lots of opportunities. And I think the reality is you just have to be careful and wise in your choices. I think that what we find is a typical student will have, one significant extracurricular which really motivates them. We were talking about sports law before. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's the law journal. Maybe it's it could be a range of different things, but it's kind of thing where you will have the ability to really have a primary interest outside of your regular classroom. Then I think what you do is you'll see that there's going to be 2 or 3 things where you just sort of duck in and out. Maybe it's an affinity group. Maybe it's just a society like an environmental law society or something else where you just say, okay, this is an interest and I want to just go to some of the panels and discussions, but you're not going to get involved in leadership. So maybe there's 2 or 3 things that you want to do in that regard. And so I think it's prioritizing ultimately. And so in that context, I think what's important to know is that, we're in a situation where you have your classes, number one, then you want to start thinking about what's that primary thing for you. And then you'll find 2 or 3 other things that'll work out for you as well.
Yeah, so I love this question. As dean, you wear multiple hats, and obviously you have an incredibly busy schedule. And I'm sure you can't always find the time to do everything you want to do in not just your professional life here as dean, but also your personal life. However, if there was an additional hour in your workday, so instead of your 14-hour workday, you have a 15-hour workday, what would you do with that additional hour?
I have to work for that time? Wow, it's rough, Matt. I think that I love being the dean. I think that if I had a little more time that had to be devoted to work, then it would probably go into teaching more. I love teaching. I love being a law professor. I don't have the time to do it like when I was full-time as a faculty member, not in administration. So I miss that. And it's a reminder, something which I really enjoy. I will, when I see you in the halls, when you're a student, I'll ask you to tell me about your class. Tell me something maybe that you learned today or that you're about to learn, or tell me about a professor who you really enjoy. Because that's the heart of what we do. You are at the heart of what we do. You, the students, and the faculty teaching you as you're on that path to becoming an excellent lawyer. So in that regard, I just think, teaching is just really exciting. Teaching is really exciting and really fun. And I still do teach, but I just don't get to teach as much as I would like to. So maybe if I had to work another hour, then that might be how I'd spend it.
We have a lighthearted side note here from one of the members of the audience and asking, what's your prediction for the score for tonight's game?
I would say, 71-62.
I imagine going to Nova.
Right. I think that's.
Yeah, well, I'm number two in the law school wide bracket right now. I'm only losing to a 1L from Clemson, who's a chemical engineer and probably slightly smarter than I am.
Well,
So
I'm number 6 right now, so
yeah,
I'm
you
not
are.
far
You are.
behind.
I didn't know if that was really you or not. I
Yeah,
saw your name, but that all
that's
right,
me.
that is you. And then if you did watch the last game, you would have saw Dean Alexander on screen for about 5 full seconds, zoomed in.
I
It was
couldn't believe it.
glorious. And another question, just sort of about obviously with the transformational gifts and all these millions of dollars that are coming in. I was wondering what are some future goals for the law school that are kind of in the works or pipelines, whether that be hires, programs, clinics, things that are coming down the line to the extent that you can announce that the students would be excited about.
Things that are coming down the line to let you know about.
Yeah, or just happen. Like I mentioned in the last panel that there was a new professor from St. Louis that we just hired on here, and I'm sure there's more faculty hires and a new director of a certain program that's going to be joining us eventually when we hire them.
Yeah, I guess I would just say that we have been in a position where we have hired a couple of faculty members, basically poached them from other schools, and we've been able to attract some really outstanding talent to our sort of junior and mid-level ranks. I'm very excited about that. We are actually hiring, as I was talking before, about the Widger gift and the Office of Career Strategy. We are hiring somebody who will be a new person in that. And actually, we just made the offer, and they are the person's going with it. So that is great. So we're adding into that. I'm still having some conversations about another professor who might join us next year. So that's to say that I think we're increasing our ranks as faculty, and we're really just having a great time.
All right, last question for the day. For now, what is one bit of advice that you have for these admitted students, sort of as they prepare to embark on this next chapter of their lives? Like, what is a suggestion that you have for them as they're in the throes of deciding where to go to law school and about to make the leap in about 5 months' time?
Gee, I mean, it's a leap, right? I mean, law school is great. I guess maybe I'll just take the question really as last bits of advice for law school of telling you, like, law school is great. I told you before, it's hard, but it can be fun. I encourage you to make it fun. I encourage you to get engaged the way we were talking about. And I think just try to remember as you go to law school, and certainly I hope it is Villanova Law, but wherever you go to law school, it's a noble profession. I'm very proud to be a lawyer. And in order to do it right, you have to really dig in, do the work, and embrace it. Embrace it, but remember where you came from too. Know your own perspective, your own values. The people who got you here, your family, your loved ones, your friends. You might not talk to some of them as much as others, but remember what brought you here, why you want to be here, why you want to be in law school, because that will help you get through the longer times of studying. That'll help you get through when you're reading a case for the second and third time over and you think you still don't get it. That'll help you when you get called on by a professor and you just don't have the answer. But you'll see as you keep plugging through it that, you know what, we've been doing this for a long time. Legal education in America has been going for a long time like this. We know what we're doing. We know, frankly, we know why we chose you. You may think to yourself, oh, why am I here? I'm struggling. Trust me, everyone struggles in the beginning of law school, but you just stay with the program. You stay with what we're doing. You keep up the work. You'll do fine. So really, work hard, but remember to have fun as well.